Hello and welcome to the Guitar School Network. I'm your host, Marc Seal, and this is the Ultimate Guitar Show. All right, today on the show, we have a great show for you today, and we're going to be covering Rage Against the Machine's Bomb track during our Riff O' the Show. During Sound Advice, I'm going to give you guys this cool, in fact, I'll give you a little demo really quick, this little octave patch sound, where you get that kind of low, thunderous sound underneath a basic distortion line. It's going to sound really cool, so I'll give you that setting on my GT6. We're going to be going to the mailbag and talking some more about harmonics, but they're not artificial harmonics. They're going to be a different type altogether. And then on All About Technique, we're going to be covering legato phrasing, which is the real smooth playing when you play faster runs. So we're going to kind of go into all of that. So let's check out All About Technique. All right, legato phrasing. With legato phrasing, what we're talking about is playing really smooth lines. Now, I know you've heard guys like Eric Johnson and Steve Vai, Joe Satriani, Alan Holdsworth. They play those really fast scale lines, but they're real smooth. They're not picking every note. And that essentially is what the legato phrasing is. What we're going to do is we're going to do a lot of hammer-ons. And in most cases, when I'm playing legato, I'll hit the first note of whatever phrase I'm going to play on each string. For example, if I'm going to play 3 notes on the 6th string, I'm only going to hit the first note and hammer on to the next 2. When I go to the next string, same thing. In each string, I'm just hitting the first note. Even when I go to the first string and I turn around, I might hit 5 notes. So I do pull-offs to come back down, but I still only hit the first one. Now, there's a great way to practice legato phrasing. What you want to do is start real simple. Let's start with a basic pentatonic scale. And what that means is we're going to be doing 2 notes per string. We're going to hit the first note, hammer on to the second note, and we're going to do that for each one of the strings all the way up from the 6th string to the 1st string, and then we'll come back down. Now, the pentatonic scale that we're going to use is going to be an A minor pentatonic. I'll give you that outline real quick. What it is this. 5th fret on the 6th string to the 8th fret. Then on the 5th string, it's 5 to 7. 4th string, 5 to 7. 3rd string, 5 to 7. 2nd string, 5 to 8. And then 5 to 8 on the 1st string. So there's our pattern. Now what we're going to do is we're going to hit the first note of each string and hammer on to the second note. For example, 5, hammer to 8 on the 6th string. 5, hammer to 7 on the 5th. 5 to 7 on the 4th, hammer on. 5 to 7 on the 3rd. 5 to 8. And then 5 to 8 on the 1st. Now on the 1st we can go 5 to 8 back to 5. And then we can reverse it and go 8 pull off to 5 on the 2nd string on the way down. 7 pull off to 5 on the 3rd string. 7 pull off to 5, 7 pull off to 5, and then 8 pull off to 5. So what that sounds like slow would be this, hitting the first note of each string, doing hammer-ons, and then pull-offs. Now it's important to note that when you're doing your pull-offs, you've got to make sure that your first finger is down before you start the pull-off. For example, when I change from the 1st string to my 2nd string to an 8 pull-off to 5, I want to make sure that my first finger gets down before I do that pull-off. I don't want to try to throw it down as I'm pulling off, so you get a real choppy sound that way. The lick sounds like this. And you can also alternate pick with your right hand if you want to make it a little more advanced. You can maybe do down, up on every other string. Kind of play around with that, experiment. And in most cases, when I'm doing something like that, a lot of times it'll be all downs on the way up and all ups on the way down, if that makes sense. It looks like this. And then ups. So experiment with whichever's most comfortable for you. It's not really a picking issue because we're trying to make everything real smooth and real legato. Now, another way you can approach this is to try doing more notes. And to come up with a simple pattern, what we'll do is we'll do like a little 3-note chromatic pattern, where we'll start on the 5th fret, and what we'll do is we'll do 5, hammer to 6, hammer to 7. So now we're doing 3 notes on the 6th string. So again, we hit the first note, hammer on, then we'll do the same thing on the 5th string. All the way up to the 1st. So it sounds like this. Then we get to that 1st string again, we go all the way up and reverse it. and then do pull-offs coming backwards. Now, sometimes people think backwards means to go 5, 6, 7, just going back down the strings. You actually got to reverse the way you're going. You got to go 7, 6, 5, 7, 6, 5, all the way down. So go up and back down. Now you can also take this one step further and add the fourth chromatic note to that, where we can go 5, 6, 7, 8, and go all the way up. You can see how smooth that sounds, okay? It sounds just got this real flow to it. Now, when you apply this to a scale pattern over some kind of a chord progression that's in key, it sounds really smooth. For example, let's look at our, we'll do our pattern 4. I know you guys know this one, so we'll do pattern 4, C major, which is basically, I'll just go by the strings. 6th string is going to be 8, 10, 12. Then the same thing on the 5th string. 9, 10, 12, and then 9, 10, 12 on strings 4 and 3. 10, 12, 13. On the 2nd string, and 10, 12, 13 on the 1st string. Now, the reason I use this example a lot, this particular scale pattern a lot, is because it's real symmetrical. Strings 6 and 5 are the same pattern, which is whole step, whole step. Strings 4 and 3 are the same pattern, half step, whole step. And then strings 2 and 1 are the same, whole step, half step. Okay, now listen, when we do this we'll do it slow, but real even, hitting one note, the first note of each string, hammering on the following 2. You get where your hands just kind of flow through it, and it's a really good practice with that particular scale because you're covering, remember we talked about the whole step issue, half step, whole step, and then the whole step, half step. By covering all those, you're covering the 3 most common patterns that you're going to find during the scales. So practice that, and you can also come up with little licks. Once you've wired that, you can come up with like a little lick where you go back and forth maybe between strings 1 and 2. We might say, okay, well, let's do a bigger stretch on strings 1 and 2, and we'll go basically 5, 7, and 9. So we want to work on our stretches. We want to just do a repetitive pattern in a legato phrase. We might take 5, 7, and 9 on string 2, up to 5, 7, and 9 on string 1, and go back and forth, hitting only the first note of each string. Now you notice with the pick on something like this, I'm just going back and forth. I might do it down up or an up down. Now if I do it down up, I'm going to be starting on the outside of the strings, meaning if you look at the pick over here, what you're going to find is I'm going down on the 2nd string, skipping over the 1st, and then doing an up on the 1st. So I'm staying out of the groove in between strings 1 and 2. So by starting with a downstroke, I'm on the outside of the 2 strings. Now if I do the same thing, but if I start with an upstroke, then I'll be on the inside of the 2 strings. I'll start with an up on string 2, right down to string 1. Probably important to master both of those. That'd be kind of a good way you can work on your picking while you're getting the legato phrasing down. Another way to practice your legato phrasing is to move up horizontally on a particular string. Now I know in the first show, or maybe the second show, I told you guys that anytime I give you an exercise, you want to try to make it your own, come up with something creative, and also try it in different spots on the fingerboard. That way you get the most practice out of it.